Hi guys, and welcome to my second video for the Cigarette Burns redo. The reason why I have to do two videos, in this video I'll be looking at Scream 2 and 3, parts 2 and 3, in one video, is because I'm a doofus. Let me establish that earlier. The guy in charge of this channel, Civilian Snowman, gave clear instructions which, because I'm a tard, I didn't understand. In my first video I was supposed to do the entire trilogy, and I only did Scream Part 1, so I'm going to do the parts 2 and 3 right now. So, for those of you who watched my last video, my thoughts and feelings on Scream were mixed. I enjoyed it from a nostalgic standpoint, but I thought it had dated quite badly. A movie that I expected to enjoy a lot less, but actually enjoyed a lot more, was Scream 2. Scream 2, I remember initially when I first saw it a few years ago, I really didn't like it. I really did not take to Scream 2, like, at all. However, watching it now, I realised the script hasn't dated half as badly. Whilst there are pop culture references in there, they're not quite as prevalent as the original Scream, so therefore the script and the film itself seems to have a little more shelf life. One of the things that Scream 2 has going for it is the return of pretty much all the original cast and crew. Wes Craven comes back, Kevin Williams comes back, and that's a key factor. And of course in Scream 2, Sydney's gone to college and the Scream face killer has followed her from Woodsboro. Again, this review will contain spoilers, but that's all I'm going to give for a general plot synopsis. I really liked this film for a number of reasons. A, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised, and B, it's actually better written, I thought. Whilst the first Scream has a whole kind of high school thing going for it, I found it really interesting that the film itself, being a study of sequels, actually deals with consequences from the first movie. One of the things I really liked is that the character of Dewey, played by David Arquette, even though I'm not a huge fan of him, I like the fact that basically he walks with a limp in Scream 2, and quite a pronounced limp, because they go, yeah, he survived, but he was hurt, and he is permanently scarred by that. He will never be as functional as he is. I mean, it makes quite a big deal with the fact of saying he can't be a policeman anymore. The idea that Courtney Cox has gained more success but is still kind of a bitch still works for me, even though it's still sort of a similar character arc for her to work through. Then there's the character of Sydney. Now here's my problem in Scream 2. Sydney is the final female of the franchise, and as such, as in many of these movies, Sydney's pretty much little more than a cipher. It's her job to survive. And the thing is, a lot of people put themselves at risk in Scream 2 for Sydney, played by Neve Campbell. And here's my thing: why would you? There's nothing particularly great about Sydney. Fair enough, she's hot, she's played by Neve Campbell, and I can understand the people from Woodsboro wanting to place themselves on the line. For example, Dewey, he's grown up with her, so it makes sense that he wants to help. But there's all these people like, I haven't met you for a few months, Sydney, but I'm willing to die for you, because it's supposed to be a freshman year in college. But that's a minor gripe, because at the end of the day, these movies ain't real. One thing I did notice about Scream in terms of the direction, as is pointed out in the sequel rules, the movie is bigger, it's more elaborate, because one of the things that people forget about the original Scream, it was made on, well, it's not low budget at all. It's, you can tell when you watch Scream 2, it's a much higher budget, it's much better shot, and there are a couple of nice little cameos in there. In fact, I love the fact that David Warner, who's a horror mainstay, he's in the original Omen, he plays Sydney's drama teacher. And the script really does feel quite fleshed out and not as reliant on pop culture references. The performances, apart from Sydney, and I'd say that's more the character rather than Neve Campbell's performances, are again strong. The character of Derek is as Sydney's boyfriend is a bit flat, but again, that's a minor quibble. Although one interesting thing in this, when you look at the credits, the script, this is going to sound so geeky, but bear with me. When you look at the film's credits, the music score is credited to Marco Beltrami, the guy who did a lot of the music for Twin Peaks. Scream was his first film score, Scream 2 was his second. Although, interestingly, huge chunks, and I mean big chunks, basically whenever Dewey appears on screen, huge chunks from the Broken Arrow movie score by Hans Zimmer, of all things, are used. Literally, the theme from Broken Arrow is used as Dewey's theme itself. I just thought it was kind of odd, and it kind of really just jarred me. But then again, I'm such a film geek. One of the things I did like about Scream 2 is the ending. Again, spoilerific. Scream 2 has a really good ending. Basically, Scream is about serial killers who are obsessed with movies and have become movie literate. It might seem pretty weak in that one of the killers is another guy who is, basically following a variant of that idea. A movie obsessed freak in Sydney's film class has, continued these killings and has got together with, of all people, Billy Loomis's mother from the first film, although she's not in the first film, but the character of Billy Loomis from the first film, his mother, is the other secondary killer. Which, the only problem I have with that, I actually kind of liked it, but it's a slight contrivance how this guy could happen to get himself in Sidney Prescott's film studies class. But again, these movies, the actual plots are often like tissue paper. If you pull them, they're going to come apart. But one thing I did like was the fact that it is the mother, and basically when the character played very well by Timothy Oliphant, the first killer, he says, I will prove myself innocent through blaming the media. As he points out quite well in the movie, something that was happening a lot at the time was that people were blaming the media and getting off scot-free, and I think that's an interesting commentary on that. That's been happening since the 70s. You only need to look at the killings in London in regards to the Tramp murders and how Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange was held directly responsible for that. So I thought that was quite an interesting idea. So then you have that quite modern idea, and then you have the polar opposite, which is Mrs. Loomis's reason for doing this. And I love the fact that she herself says, my reasons were a lot less 90s. It's pure old-fashioned revenge. And a lot of people hated that. They hated the simplicity of it. Why would the mother be doing that? I've got two words for you, Mrs. Voorhees. The killer in the first Friday the 13th movie ain't Jason, it's Jason's mom. It's a classic staple of the slasher genre, and I hated that at the time, but looking back on it now and being a bit older, a bit wiser, and not to be too pretentious, a bit more film literate, I really like that reference. So yeah, Scream 2, I have a lot of time for Scream 2. I actually think it's the best of the trilogy. It's the one that at least holds up the best. And then we move to Scream 3. Right, basically my wife we just watched the movie. My wife gave the best quick capsule review of the film. Bev, your thoughts on Scream 3?
Snooze fest.
Snooze fest. Bev calls it like she sees it, snooze fest. I really struggled with this movie. We both did. This movie reeks of a cash-in. Of course you can say that for Scream 2, because Scream was kind of a sleeper hit. It did reasonable business the first weekend and then steadily built by word of mouth. So So of course there was going to be a Scream 2 because it made a ton of money. But Scream 2, in making reference to sequels, and actually happening ironically enough reasonably close after the first Scream, doesn't feel like such a cash-in. Scream 3 does. Scream 3 feels like a big-time contractual obligation. Wes Craven is there to direct, but it's a different guy. I can't remember his name. It's a different guy writing the script. And it really does feel tired and a cash-in. I'm surprised Wes Craven came back. So anyway, the plot is there's going to be. Here's the thing. Scream is a postmodern horror film. Scream 2 is a postmodern look at sequels and the continuation of repercussions from that. When you're going on to a postmodern look at a postmodern movie, you're folding in on yourself, and that's what I think the problem is with Scream 3. Scream 3 is based on killings that are based on the movie, that are based on the actual events of the fictional story of the film. That's pretty much it, and it tries to be too clever. Cut in a nutshell, there's a fictional movie franchise based on it called Stab, and they're in the third one, and someone's killing off the members of the third one in the franchise. This one's supposed to be more of a commentary on the movie making process, I think, or was supposed to be, rather than how people interact with movies themselves, and that was why it didn't work for me. If you want to see a really good satire on the dark side of how movies are made and how that affects those who made them, watch Sunset Boulevard. It's creepy, and it actually does what Scream 3 is trying to do a lot better. I'm not saying Sunset Boulevard's a slasher flick, but if you ever watch it, you'll see what I'm talking about. I just didn't like it. Neve Campbell didn't want to be in Scream 3. They really had to pretty much blank check it to get her through the door. And you can really tell, because there are big chunks in Scream 3 where Neve Campbell is not on screen. They write that into the script, but yeah, it's just weak and tired. One of the things I will say, and one of the things that really disheartened me, if you'll bear with me on this, in Scream 2, Wes Craven shows the opening of Stab, which is the bad horror movie based on what's actually happened in previous movies, which I know is quite plausible under metafiction, but it works in Scream 2. And in Scream 2, in order to show that this is a bad, tackily made horror film and what's wrong with horror films, in Scream 2 he shows a cute blonde and a towel dropping to show gratuitous nudity. Right, that is his thing of saying, this is bad slasher flicks and this is why we made Scream in the first place. That's Scream 2. In Scream 3, he actually opens the movie that way. He actually shows a girl in the shower for no reason and dropping the towel. In previous movies, he'd said that is the definition of lazy direction. Okay? In Scream 3, he actually does that. I think that was his way of saying to the audience, I can't be arsed with this one. I went for the money. I'm sorry if I sound quite passionate. I've got a lot of time for Wes Craven. He's quite derided now. It's quite in vogue to bash Wes Craven. I actually have a lot of time for him, and I find it really disheartening when he goes to sleep at the wheel like this, as he does in Scream 3. David Arquette's fine as Dewey because he's doing more of the same. One of the distracting things as well, Courtney Cox is quite an attractive woman, but in this movie she's so thin, it's actually detracting from what you see. So to wrap it up, I would say Scream 2, watchable. I would think better than Scream 1, although for me Scream 1 will always have nostalgic value and you've always got to love it because it's the first of its kind, or rather the first well-known film of its kind. Although I just want to take a minute before I wrap up the review. People think that Wes Craven had disappeared in the interval between Nightmare on Elm Street and the Scream franchise. He didn't. There are a couple of great Wes Craven movies you should check out. That's The People Under the Stairs and The Serpent and the Rainbow. Those are two great little horror films. Scream 2 is a good movie, but if you want to see the best Wes Craven at his best, check out those. They're really good. So like I say, Scream 2, best of the trilogy. Scream 3, avoid. I dislike Scream 3 that much that I'll probably just give Scream 4 a rent. Avoid Scream 4, it sucks. So anyway, that was the Scream trilogy. It's innovative, 2's its high point, 1 breaks ground, 3's a piece of shit. I hope you enjoyed the review, and until next time, this is me saying, see ya.